Hello YouTube and welcome back. We have finally returned 1 week later. We promised that we would review our tier list and put it into a final numbered power ranking, and that's what we're here to do. Spent the last week obviously taking a closer look at all these teams at Champions, and there's definitely some changes that I think I want to make. And also, because I'm going to do it numbered, we're going to not count the hype as much. So there is that. But reviewing how things went down last time, we put 5 tiers. Originally, at GG Well Played above here for the hype, but then we decided, well, it's a tier list, and I have bias, so hype is going to be higher. And I see that you guys are saying I'm doubting Zeta again. I'm not doubting Zeta again. It's just the 16 teams at Champions are very, very strong. And while Zeta has made sweeping improvements in a lot of the core issues that I thought they had, I mean, it's just like, I don't know. So do you think they can beat Loud? No, I don't think so. Do you think they can beat DRX? I don't know. Even when DRX is looking weaker, I don't think so, right? Do you think they can beat EDG? Definitely not, actually. You know, it's just, that's where it is. And Footballists and Giants are kind of the same thing. Like, they're not bad teams. They're definitely not bad players. But although that was my thought process. I think we're going to have some changes here. So that was my thought process last week. That's just a little bit of context. Yeah, and then also, obviously, there's the group. But that's, I mean, the group is whatever. This is more of a tier list and a power ranking. So anyway, so we're going to review this today. Let's put this into the numbers and see where we stand, see what changes I want to make after having a closer look at the VODs. So, originally, we had Fnatic here. Wow, I ended up putting EDG in 6th if I was to go in order. That's actually kind of crazy. I don't know how I feel about my own rankings. Okay. Fnatic getting 4 slots for EMA saved Na'Vi. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Alright, so this is where we started. If we were to take this tier list on the right and put it in order on the left. Fnatic, EG... Paper X. You know what the crazy thing is? I actually think I rate... Oh, but EG is so good. EG... What impressed me the most about EG was that it did not feel like it was a fluke. The strats they had prepared, the mid-rounding they had prepared, the mid-rounding adjustments they had off of timeouts, the I mean, counter-stratting is becoming a loaded term, but basically the prep they clearly had, like, it's just, man. Paper X is very good, too. The other thing is, secretly in my heart, I'm like, well, I probably have Paper X bias because I watched so much more of them during the regular season. You know what? I think Paper X should be ranked 2nd, though. And this could also be a little bit of hopium and overhyping because it's like, oh, is it just because something's, you know, back with them now, etc.? It's like, well, that's a big part of it, yes. But here's what it is. To me, here's what it is. The way they play allows them to be even, like, much more flexible, right? EG at the end of the day is still their philosophy still seems to be very much revolving around certain tactics, and they're not like DRX where they're like, well, we need to wait until like X amount of seconds with 5 exact people in these exact situations. That's not it. But at the end of the day, they still revolve around like a playbook, and weirdly enough, Paper X does not. They don't. Not to say that they play dumb, they play very smart, but they don't like revolve around a playbook. They have a playbook, or so I would like to believe, but that's not the core of their play style. And I think in the current, not meta, but like status of Valorant, that is so much more valuable. That's how I see it. Fnatic can do that because they're individually so strong, right? That's where they get that flexibility. Paper X also individually very strong, but they also kind of like lean more into the whole flexibility status. So, you know, that's where I think I would rank Fnatic higher. But Yeah, and then, yeah, like you're saying, Jing Raise, something Reyna on certain maps, Forsaken Chamber, if he wants to play it. I don't know if he would want to, though. I think he's having so much fun playing some of these other agents, which I think is good for Paper X. Are you taking into account the hypothetical chamber significance? Yes, to a certain amount. I am taking into the chamber a little bit. I am taking into account a little bit. But yeah, so at the end of the day, I think just stylistically, Paper X are a bit favored. I think also, as great as EG's players are, just pure mechanics-wise, Paper X, like Forsaken Jing something and Devi, I would say, are like can all reliably win their duels against their counterparts. The only one I guess we can hold out on that is the Demon One versus something duel. It's like, okay, well, maybe we have to wait to see. But the thing about something is just, listen, I think Demon One's fantastic, but something, it's kind of like Jing, where both something and Jing are just like literally every move, every shot they take is so crisp and so good. Like, it's the decision making they have, the flicks that they have, the way that, you know, the angles they hold, it's just, it's so good. It's very rare, especially if you're like casting pro level, to look at a player and be like, literally every moment of this impresses me, because, you know, you're always watching the best players. So at a certain point you're like, well, this is what all players do. But then you watch something and you're like, oh, but this is not what all players do. Like, this guy's just crazy. It's like Kong with the op. It's like, oh, you're like breaking the data. You're doing things that even the pros aren't supposed to do. And it's kind of similar to why Ye was so praised last year, was just because of, you know, the way he would like push out on chamber and the angles he would hold and the chances he would take, you know, with the headhunter and things like that. It's like, oh, like, you're not supposed to do that. Like, even amongst pros, like, that's crazy. Like, that's what impresses you. And something has that, and Jing on Raze has that. He doesn't have it as much on the other agents that he's played, but which, by the way, includes Reyna in the past on Haven, funny enough. But yeah, so on that note, I think Paper X go up on second. So at this point, the biggest question for me is, should I count Loud higher just because of, you know, Tokyo's really the only thing that was disappointing for them. Unfortunately, that's the most recent thing. Aspas is still one of the greatest players. Les is still a really good player. Sadak is still a really good player and an IGL. Kawanzin and Tui's... Kawanzin, I mean, for the first half of the year, I thought him paired with Aspas was like the best duo that you could find. Maybe it's a little shaky. Tui's, I would say, is probably the weakest, but it's also like if everyone else does play up to their potential, like he just has to just do his part, right? So there is a world where I would want to put them like fourth. At which point the argument then comes between EG and NRG. The thing is, I mean, I think, listen, I hate to rely a lot on recency bias, but I think you have to at least respect it, right? And I don't think the way EG got second was a fluke. I mean, yeah, you could argue like, well, Paper X didn't have something. It's like, okay, fine. Maybe they would have gotten third, but it's like the road to the top three for them, top two, was very much off of their own merit. And you can see this because the way they won was off of their own game plan. It wasn't necessarily because other teams were like floundering, which some of them were, at least compared to expectations, but, you know, including the match against like Loud and stuff like that. But I think EG stays third. NRG, then it becomes kind of a three-way discussion between NRG, Liquid, and Loud. For me, NRG is just so consistent. Like, that core, the Optic core is so good. If I could pick a three-man core... okay, well, not counting Leo, Chronicle, and, like, Dirk or Alpha Air. Okay, maybe I would take that. Well, actually, no, maybe I wouldn't. Just because the Optic core comes with an IGL. So maybe I wouldn't. Maybe it would even trump that, right? That sounds crazy to say, but... Like, if I was given a bag of money and said, you get to pick a three-man core, and then okay. So if this is a scenario, I'm given a bag of money, and they say you can pick any like 2 to 3 man core of a team, but the rest of the roster is going to be filled out by someone else, and you have to make it work, it would be the Optic core, right? The positions they play, the roles they have, the clear style and understanding and comms that they have is just so consistent that you could plug anyone in there and they could still, like, I honestly believe if you take anyone from VCT globally, any 2 players, and put them next to Crashy's Victor and Finesse, they would like always be able to like make top 8, or at least have a very good chance. I think they would be expected to win top 8. I guess, you know, you never know, but because of, you know, what's their group and things like that. But I just think that's how strong that core is, right? You can just put in any other 2 players and you can find a way to make it work. And yeah, so that's why they have to be 4th for me. They have to be top 4 for me. Again, this isn't what I think the final standings are going to be. This is just where I rank their like power level, right? And to me, a power ranking takes into account both their ceiling, the potential ceiling, and also the current average, like their consistency that I'm seeing, right? So for instance, like Paper X, a lot of it is actually the ceiling more so than the consistency for me, right? Their understanding. Same thing with EG, like their understanding of the game. It's unique, so I think it goes higher. I think they can get even stronger. But yeah, so NRG just really off of the consistency. And then if Victor continues to have a really great tournament, if Crashy's had a rough one at Tokyo, even then he wasn't bad. But you know, we just have such high expectations of this guy. So if he's able to get right back into that form of like, no, I'm still always going to be in contention for, you know, best initiator in the world, or one of at least, then, you know, I think they can get back through. I think for NRG, it is very much a team thing. I mean, yes, I think a lot of the spotlight, including for myself, goes to Artis, but part of that I think is also how you're using him. And not to say that this is like the team's fault, but you know, I feel like they thought certain things would work and it didn't, right? So hopefully they can adjust that, like certain ideas and certain styles. Som is playing really well. I think Som needs more credit than he's getting, actually. He's getting a lot of credit, but I don't think he's getting enough. So Energy's at 4th. Okay. Oh. Loud versus Liquid. I also think Loud's ceiling is probably higher. Here's the thing, is that I think what I value the most about Liquid is I think their potential continues to be one of the highest. But I don't think, but it's very much hopium, right? This, to me, this is like the tournament where it's like, okay, if you still don't reach like 90, this sounds harsh, but if you don't reach like 95% of that potential, I think some of us, including myself, will be like, okay, maybe whatever the reason is, I don't know, but maybe the ceiling has to be brought down a bit lower for you guys. I know I said I hate EDG overhype, but I'll take him over Loud in a power ranking. Wow. Really? This is the effect that Loud's performance at Tokyo had? Do people feel that way globally right now? I mean, clearly I felt that way when I made the tier list, but the more I think about it in a numbered power ranking, I think they should be higher. Damn, they did some irreparable damage to themselves at Tokyo, huh? For Loud, getting a bye into a 0-map win blowout playoffs tends to wreck reputation. This is true. You know what? You're right. Listen, this is not so much recency bias for Liquid. It's much more like recency bias against Loud. That's true. The 0 maps is a bit rough. The 0 maps is what does it. Granted, the maps they played are you have to have some questions, but fine. I still put them above EDG, though. If I have to put numbers, I am favoring the consistency that Loud has shown for the year. I know I put EDG in front of Loud in the tier list, but I was riding the hype. I was riding the hopium. I didn't know what I was talking about. I was reading too much Reddit last week. I'm putting Loud back in the top 6. This is one of those times where I'm like, okay, as bad as Tokyo was, like, I can't imagine, you can't possibly imagine looking at that roster, looking at what they can do individually, like even just the aim duels, literally like just put up one flash for Aspas, and you can't imagine that they like Tokyo was where they're at currently. Like that's their average. Just whatever it was. I don't want to look into the rumors, but part of it's obviously like the comps and maps they played. It didn't work out. Clearly, the way they were trying to play it wasn't suiting them. Whatever it was, they had time to adjust. I'll take that into account. I'll put Liquid above them because I'll take that into account. But EDG is where I draw the line, all right? As monster as EDG was. Now, I think EDG is going to look better than Tokyo. I think they will, just because of the way they improved match to match at Tokyo. I was like, okay, these guys have it's finally clicked for them, like how to improve. Now, we should also note they had to go back and play the China qualifiers, right? So they did not have as long of a break to just cook stuff up than the other top 6 teams. So that's the other thing, right? So I'll put EDG at 7th. I'm okay with this. I'm okay with putting... Listen, EDG is still in the top 8 of champions after having one, let's be honest, decent run. They didn't get 3rd place, right? They didn't even make top 4. We gotta stop the hype. We gotta calm down. EDG's in 7th. We're locking that in. Okay. This is probably the most difficult decision I'm going to make on this power ranking. T1 versus DRX. Oh. Oh, man. T1 and DRX are not making out of groups? That's crazy. I think T1's making out of groups. What? I mean, first of all, this power ranking, I'm trying not to take groups into account. I'm just trying to look at, like, overall power. You don't think T1 is making it out of groups? Are you favoring Footballist? Listen, I think Footballist is a good team, but I think Footballist fans are riding their own hypium a little bit too much. Oh, that's a period, not a comma. Oh, okay, period, not a comma. Oh, okay, I misread that in chat. I was about to freak out. Okay. DRX is not making it out of groups, so you think T1 is stronger. Okay. Whew. I thought we had a Footballist friggin' fan with a friggin' 10-liter tank of hopium right next to him. Listen, Footballist is a good team. Foot is a good team. It's just I don't think they're that deep. Not yet. Do the method where it's like with Zest versus with Floxy and I versus with musical chairs. Okay, listen. If they do the thing where I talked about this, and Bala talked about some Platchet yesterday too, it was so funny because we talked about the same thing. Was it Bala? I think it was Bala. If they do the thing where they play their first game with Foxy 9 and they lose too loud, and then they put in Zest, I don't care if they make it out of groups. I'm putting them like here. Okay? They need to stop that. They need to stop it. And they need to stop. In fact, I would rather see them go out with 0 match wins, like 2-0, 2-1 or whatever in groups, but stick with one of the players, and then I would rank them higher. Like that's how big I think that matters. Okay? They need to stop that. Especially swapping for all maps after a loss. That's insane to me. And here's the thing. And I really, from all the conversations I've seen and heard and whatnot from the coaching staff of DRX, I can only, this part is assumption, disclaimer, this part is assumption, but I imagine that this was done because during the year, they like, there's always something left, right, that they need to guarantee. Like, well, we need to go to Tokyo, and this is the one Masters of the year, so we need to prove something, especially in front of the Japanese fans. Whatever it is. But Champions is it, right? So if you and for DRX, who has gotten 3rd place before, anything less than 3rd place, it doesn't matter if you made top 4. It doesn't matter if you made top 8. It doesn't matter if you went out in groups. Everyone's just going to remember it. I hate to say this, but as a failure. I don't think it's a failure if you got into the brackets and maybe you had a tough matchup. But the fans are going to remember it as a failure regardless. So you should stop being afraid of that, okay? You should stop being afraid of it and just stick to a plan. It's bad for Foxy 9's mental. It's bad for the team's mental too of we have to... It's bad for Buzz's mental, in my opinion. This guy's like, dude, I can just chill and frag out as Killjoy, and then you lose, and they're like, all right, Buzz, you're back up. And he's like, and here's the worst part. I think he's actually the player on that team that can, like, make things happen. I think he has that mentality and confidence. So he's fine as the Jet. I think he's in some ways, I think he's a better entry than Foxy 9. I think Foxy 9 is probably a mechanically stronger player. So Buzz entering is fine, but then he's also like, well, now I have to, like, be that explosive entry. And it's like, and the worst part is he does it. But imagine having to do that at that age, every tournament you play, every bracket you play, like, for the entire roster. I get why it was done. If my assumption is correct, I get why it was done, but it's champions. Anything less than third place, people are not going to remember the distinction. They're just going to remember that it wasn't a new record for DRX. And so you have to stop. You have to stop. Was there an article where they said that Foxy's comms is really just... But that's the thing, is... Which, by the way, there was an article that said that, and I believe it. I absolutely believe it. I so believe it. But that's my point, though, is... If that was the reason, and then you, like, had to guarantee things, right? Like, well, we have to go to Tokyo, and this is the grand finals in Seoul, so we have to play Zest. Like, that I get. I don't think it's the best, but I get it. And I very much believe Foxy 9's comms are not quite, especially compared to the rest of the roster, because they've played together all year last year, and, like, Zest is a veteran of the FPS scene now in Korea alongside Stacks. Like, obviously Foxy's not going to be up to that point. Also, he's been known to have nerve issues before, which is why he wasn't picked up any earlier, even as, like, a trainee for a lot of teams. DRX took that chance, and clearly the play itself is... You know, they've somehow managed to try to get over it, but the comms is going to be a very difficult thing. Comms is very good. Comms are really hard to learn. But again, my point is listen, I get all that, but at champions, like, anything less than third place, the fans are just going to remember it the same. Unless maybe you have 0 map wins. Maybe that will be a distinction. But other than that, people are just going to remember that you didn't get third place or higher. They're going to remember that you didn't reach another best of 5, and that the fans are going to be disappointed. I'm sorry. That's just the state of things. I think you have to take a closer look at the journey. But therefore, just stop trying to go for the minimal guarantee. The minimal guarantee doesn't hold value anymore, right? That's what I mean. You have to cook. They stopped cooking. It's like they were at a restaurant and they brought in this new chef, and they're like, or like a sous chef, right? I guess Foxy 9 would be the head chef. You're at a restaurant and you brought in a new sous chef, and he has so much potential. He's got so many crazy ideas, but then he brings up this new crazy dish, right? And he like puts a bunch of, like, lemon on top of whatever, right? And you serve it, and people are like, and suddenly your 5-star rating looks like it's going to drop down to a 4-star rating, and you're like, well, we can't do that. We have to maintain at least 4.5. And you're like, well, what always worked? You're like, well, our cheeseburgers always went well, so you sell the cheeseburgers again. But the thing is, these are all just frozen beef patties, and they're just good because you're greasy, so you serve that again. And then the next season comes, and you're like, all right, let's try a new menu, and the sous chef brings something in again, and it does okay in the beginning, but then suddenly this whole, like, middle school field trip comes in, and they're like, oh, we hate it because it has anchovies. And you're like, well, our star rating can't go down. Let's sell those cheeseburgers again. And you just bring it out of the freezer and you put it on the friggin', grill, and then you just serve it. And then it's like, oh, well, it's a 4.5 because it's a good cheeseburger and everyone's hungry. But then if you keep just selling cheeseburgers for the entire year, people are going to be sick of it. It's not impressive anymore. It's like, well, it's a cheeseburger. Like, whatever. Granted, sometimes a taste of home is nice, but it's no longer a taste of home, okay? Like, other teams are now doing set plays better. Other teams are making better cheeseburgers. They're making homemade beef patties that are bigger. It's like, and they have like 3 sheets of cheese instead of 1. It's like, okay, well, your cheeseburger isn't even the best cheeseburger anymore. So just stop it. Just sell some wonky, just sell some wonky pizza with, like, peaches on top, and at least see if it works with somebody. Right? Just don't. And then if it doesn't work, just keep cooking up different pizzas. Stop going back to this single patty, single cheese cheeseburger. It's not even the best. It's just not. Now after I've gone on that rant, I cannot possibly put them above T1. Oh, it pains me. It pains me. Okay, I'll be very honest. Within these two teams, the DRX ranch stands. I think that stands. But within these two teams, I will admit it. I'll be the first one to admit I have a lot of biased hopium for T1. And the reason I have a lot of biased hopium for T1 is exactly actually because they're the opposite of DRX. They are willing to try their own new ideas. And they're willing to commit to it. And when I listen to their comms, everyone is willing to make these sacrificial plays. There's so much trust amongst each other, right? Like, what I was impressed about was when they were playing that Gecko comp on Bind. I forget who it is that they're peeking, but they're like looking to double peek a Sky on B main. They know where the Sky is, and then they send a Cascade out to like mask their swing out, and then they're double peeking the Sky. And Saya, instead of going for the kill, which he absolutely could because he's good, he literally says right as they peek, I'm going to swing wide for you. Like, off of the Cascade. You already put up the Cascade to gain an advantage. And then Saya goes, I'm going to swing wide, and tells Carpe to go for the kill. Saya still shoots as well. But he sets up Carpe. I think, actually, maybe Saya ends up getting the kill. But just this idea of, like, I don't have to be the one, because Carpe is really good, right? Like, I have, you know, I'll just swing out, because we'd rather keep, if we're already taking Garden, like, we'd rather keep our, you know, Gecko alive or whatever. So like, and get the old points onto Gecko or whatever the other reasoning was. Just like, just the fact that they're able to make these micro adjustments and have this trust live, and they're okay with this, their own ideas that are very utility heavy. I just have a lot more hopium. I think from everything they've shown, yes, DRX is above. That is true. But I do think the ceiling is higher on T1. It just makes me so sad. I mean, the T1 hopium is exciting, but it just makes me so sad that, like, DRX is in a state where I have to discuss this. So between these two teams, really, literally, to me, they're 8th and... Yes, they're 8th and 9th. But it's a question of, do I count ceiling above just, like, consistent Valorant team skill level? I think even in... I'm going to hold that. I was going to say, I think individually, maybe T1 is higher. I don't think they're lower, though. I think they're even or higher. Well, again, I guess it depends if we're counting Foxy 9 or not. But listen, this is a little controversial, but I'm just gonna, this is my little bias. This is my slight bias ticket. All right, I get one free bias ticket for my power ranking, and I'm putting it on T1. I'm going to put it on T1. I'm riding the hopium. I'm riding the hype of T1. Faker has returned to League of Legends. I don't know if they actually won that game yesterday, but regardless, the T1 stocks are back on the rise. T1 is top 8 material at Champions. All right? They did. Nice. Nice. It's foreshadowing. T1 is taking over Riot Games esports. All right? Yeah, that's the other thing that Chance mentioning is the brand of Valorant, right? Don't save stuff, just use it to take advantage. This is I made when I did T1 and scoped in. That's exactly what I talked about. It's just gain advantages where you can. That is literally what Paper X does. That's what EG does. That's what Fnatic does. NRG not as much, but they have other ways of managing it. That's just what they're really good at, right? T1's just like, well, don't be util. Like, just gain an advantage. We're also very good individually, but like, why save it and risk it for like the perfect moment? Just win when we can. And I think that's how you should be playing Valorant right now. Okay, DRX, DRX Navi, round 2. Oh my god. Navi's in the same boat of like, your ceiling should be somewhere in the top 6. They should really be, this should really be the discussion. This should be the discussion. All right, Loud versus Navi should be the discussion. But Navi, whereas Loud has disappointed us once, Navi is like consistently toyed with us and disappointed us all the way down to the bottom 8. And I don't know how this happened. These are two cooks that's not having success with it at all. Yeah. Well, okay, one restaurant is selling cheeseburgers, And one restaurant's like, we want to become a theme park. And I'm like, no, you're a restaurant. Just make some good food. It's like, damn, I don't know. Do I think cheeseburgers are better than a weird theme park? They're not even in the same category. Okay, so now let's think about, okay, so Chamber's back. Who benefits better from this? You know, in a really weird world, I think DRX benefits better from this. Put Buzz on Chamber. Buzz's Chamber was very good. And then Foxy on Jet or Raze. Man, can we cheat? Let's just do this. No, you know what? After I think about the Chamber thing, I do, because here's the thing, is that the way Buzz played Chamber is not op heavy, actually. So if you have Foxy9 on Jet, you can still have him be the op, have a great op, and then you can still have a Chamber who's playing... Now, this is assuming they play the Chamber, but I think they can benefit from this. No, yeah, I think I put DRX above Na'Vi. Remember when Na'Vi was, like, contending for winning lock-in in people's rankings? I remember. Yeah, well, that's the thing, is that if you said Artist, then I would say, okay, Na'Vi with the Chamber back is super strong, but if you put it on... I mean, if it's on the current Na'Vi, it would have to be CNED, right? And it's like, well, that's kind of where CNED struggled, so... Like, CNED's a Jet. CNED is a Jet. I mean, he's very good at other things, but he's, like, shines on Jet, so... Yeah. Okay, I'm fine with this. The more I think about it, the Chamber patch, assuming that DRX is cooking, and they're not just taking things out of the freezer and putting it on the frying pan, assuming they're actually turning on the grill and doing stuff and stir-frying things and making sauces, DRX should be 9th in ranking. Okay, I'm fine with that. That's locked in. All right, now the battle of... I don't even know how to categorize these teams. These are all... You know what the worst part is? I think Foot, to me, has the least hype out of these teams. Okay, so I think the stronger ranking is definitely these three. And then I think it's like Zeta as a close one, and then I think it's Billy FPX. However, I'm kind of high on Billy hype. And then also I'm kind of high on FPX Berlin hype, but only Berlin. And only if he plays Omen. So maybe FPX is here. I mean, listen, so I went back and watched the LCQ VODs of Crew. And while, yes, it story-wise, it's a miracle run, but the improvements, the changes they made are just... It's like, oh, yeah, like, this is exactly what you needed, like, the past 2 years. They finally figured it out. And a lot of it is their IGLing, but somehow, well, not just the IGL, but their calling, but somehow what their calling has done is it's actually allowed Kesnet to, like, not feel like he has to always overachieve. That's the thing that surprised me the most, because that just seemed like one of those things where it's like he's going to have such a hard time breaking out of that habit regardless of what his teammates are doing. And he's not doing that anymore. And they look so much better for it. So Crew, I think Crew is fine as 11th. From here on out, any team that goes above Foot feels unfair to Foot just because, like, well, you know, they went to Tokyo, etc. But, well, I guess it is a bit of hypium. But Crew, I don't know, just the adjustments they made, and then also, like, Nax could still play Chamber. Well, Kesnet, I don't know, Kesnet seems to be back in form. Kesnet's God. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Crew above Foot. Oh, these three? Man, listen, if I was just fanboying, I would put Billy in, like, 11th. But... Giant Zeta Billy. Listen, I really don't want to do the Billy FPX last two. I really don't. I actually think Billy deserves a bit more attention. I would also put Zeta above Giants. I think now it's pretty straightforward, which I hate to do this. I hate to put Billy and FPX in 15th and 16th because I really think Billy is more so like tied. Whoa, not FPX. Calm down, FPX. They're more so tied like here. Yeah, honestly, Billy's not a bad team. I think a lot of people are... I think they're a team worth having hype for, which is why I put them here, right? Now, granted, when we made this tier list, we originally said, you know, technically, if we were to rank power, the GG Well Played team should probably be above. So that's exactly kind of where this lands, except for crew, because I went back and watched the VODs, and I'm like, oh, actually, no, the hype is not unfounded. But I think Billy... I think they absolutely deserve the hype. Right? Statistically, I don't think they're reliable, but it's not just like willy-nilly frag out style. Like their calling is actually pretty good, I remember. That's how they beat FPX. I mean, FPX, you know, Berlin makes some really good decisions now and then, but yeah, they took a map off of EDG. Like Billy's, they could make news. I'm not gonna say I think they can make like an entire upset, but here's the thing: is that like I think there is a world where they definitely I think could take one map off of NRG, but there's a world where like they could beat this first opening match. Now I think if they rematched, NRG would win 100%. But that's partly Billy and that's partly NRG's style of like they need to download, right? And their download is fast, but it's not like 10G. It's just very realistically 5G speed. BLG and Billy and Zeta are not making out of groups together. Now there's a world where Zeta makes a miracle run, right? I think like there's a hype factor here. I think there's a hype factor here. I mean, I don't think even crew, I don't think you even count it as a hype factor. I think these two are the ones where it's like, okay, well, they're bottom four, but they could easily, like, in the eventual results, one of them could maybe make it to top 8, right? Like, that's possible, but they're both in the same group, so it's like, I don't know. But this is what I'm thinking. Fnatic, PaperX, EG, NRG in the top 4. Ugh, no, Loud should be included in that group. Maybe this is how I divide it. Maybe I divide it in like, you know what, we're not going to do color codes. But yeah, I think Fnatic is in their own tier. I think PaperX technically is their own tier above that, and then EG, NRG, Liquid, and Loud. That's how I view it. But again, I'm most familiar with PaperX, so I'm a little biased there. EG, NRG, Liquid, Loud. But I would say like down to top 6, it should not be like a shocking. It should not be like a what an upset, what a crazy story that they won champions. Like that should not be it. The only crazy story there would be that one of these teams beat Fnatic. Other than that, I think in the top 6, any of these winning would be fine. It would be more of like, okay, so Loud did learn and brush up, right? Like that's how I would learn. And then I think EDG T1 are kind of in their own tier of like, okay, they've both shown so much potential. Like who's really building on it? Then you've got the DRX Navi crew zone, where I would just be like, I would actually put crew in there, but the difference is DRX and Navi are on a downhill slope, while crew are on an uphill slope. But it's more like, okay, who's like really kind of going to realize the big foundational changes they needed to make? Crew just made that foundational change. Navi and DRX have yet to prove that they've really understood what foundational changes they need to make. So question's still out. Then it's like Foot, Zeta, Giants of like, you guys are really consistent teams, you guys are very good teams, but just the competition is really tough. And then it's Billy and FPX, where it's like also literally the only games we've seen of Billy are just in the China qualifiers. FPX had a really rough lock-in, but I think the way they play look a lot better at the Chinese qualifiers, so it's like, okay, well, we don't know. That's how I would group these together. I'm actually pretty happy with this power ranking. That's okay. So now what I wanted to do, okay, so let's calm things down. I went on a couple rants there, but this is our final power ranking. If we compare how it looks to the tier list we originally had, It's relatively similar. I mean, the groups are similar, right? The tiers. We've got Fnatic, we've got Paper X, EG, Energy, Liquid in one group. Then we've got Liquid, Loud, EDG, T1, Darius, Na'Vi. Actually, yeah, no one's escaped. The only one that's escaped their own tier is Crew, who've like really solidified themselves in my heart of like a team that's ready to make something happen. It's just that they're in a really rough group with Paper X and EDG. And there's a bit of an order change, right? I'm putting Paper X above EG. I'm putting Loud back up above EDG. And then Crew obviously has jumped up quite a bit. But otherwise, not much has changed after reviewing my VODs. But putting it into numbers, it's a much clearer picture of like, okay, really, how do I see them stack up against each other? And you know what? If this was like the top 8, if this is what, you know, the people who actually made it into the bracket, Fnatic, Paper X, EG, Energy, Liquid, Loud, EDG, T1, I don't think that should be shocking. I think the only one here that would be like, people are kind of like, oh, wow, they did make it to top 8. It would be T1. But also, I think in their group, they're very likely to make top 8. So this is where I stand. Excited to see if this works out. I have no idea. I mean, honestly, here's the thing. Some teams have had a long time, you know, in between without having to play the LCQs. Hopefully they've been cooking. Hopefully they're figuring things out. I think we're actually in still... I think Valorant is currently amidst a meta shift. So I'm curious to see how teams adjust to it. And I think it should be very, very exciting. That's my power ranking. 4 days left for Champions 2023 in Los Angeles. Opening match is actually going to be Group D, so we've got Loud versus DRX. Oh, man, and then you've got Na'Vi, Liquid. That should be exciting. I'll be casting on the Korean side. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think about these actual power rankings now that we've put it into numbers away from the tier list. Let me know who you think is going to win Champions, who's going to make it out of groups. I hope you guys liked the video. Please make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and I will see you next week.